Good morning. My name is Jamie Rich, and welcome to the premiere episode, the premiere broadcast of Rise and Shine Sundays. I'm your host, and I guess I should probably say from the very beginning, welcome to an experiment. One of the things that was really important, I think, in the world right now is to create containers for people to have discussions over topics that matter. And I was part of the process that we've been putting together for Rise and Shine Sundays over the past couple of weeks has been looking at ways in which we can have people participate in an inquiry about topics that matter to them. And so that is what Rise and Shine Sundays is all about. And as we're kind of putting it together, we're inviting you along on this journey to sort of help us build it together. So what we're going to try to do with Rise and Shine Sundays over the next couple of weeks is invite you to gather with us as we work together to light up what's emerging. There's a lot happening in the world right now, but what we want to do with this particular program is invite you to explore in an inquiry of the topic that we have for the week and see if it offers a shift in your life as we're going through. And as the weeks progress, we're going to invite you to join in the conversation. Because part of the whole purpose of doing this program live is to incorporate your input into what we're doing. So I'm going to share a little bit. I'm going to kind of switch over to a screen. Um, so that topic, how we end a chapter shapes what comes next, is the focus for this particular episode of Rise and Shine Sundays. Because everywhere you turn right now, everyone wants you to start over on January 1st. We have all this enormous pressure out in the world to sort of begins things anew. And I kind of thought it was interesting as we're starting with our first episode that we would actually say, what if we focused on conscious endings of the past year first? Why could we not take this time to discover the correct closing sequence for ourselves, right? So we're inviting this type of an inquiry. We're inviting you to kind of participate in this inquiry around that central question of how we end a chapter shapes up what comes next. And to help us with these explorations, I've invited my very good friend, Ray Guyot, and we're going to talk about a few things as it relates to that topic. Ray, are you here?
Hey, Jamie.
Welcome.
Well, thank you. Fantastic intro
Well, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
and and
Um,
and and wonderful question to explore.
yeah. Yeah. We've had the good fortune to be talking about a number of things over the past couple of weeks as far as it relates to this particular topic. And I'm knowing that I'm knowing that there's an awful lot of pressure right now, like in the world, for us to kind of do things. So what we want to talk a little bit about is I want to talk a little bit about that pressure and how it shows up. I think, like I said earlier, January 1st hits and suddenly everyone's supposed to be a different person, right? Whether it's the fitness industry or productivity gurus, there's this new you, new year machine. And unfortunately, for many people, it has them starting the year behind. Um, have you noticed that in some of your work?
Oh yeah, I think you've started it off in an interesting way. Is the world around us is always sending some kind of message to us, and it's not always the best message, or it's not always intended for us specifically. It's a broadcast. It's a massive blast of information, and it follows the habits, the customs, and the processes that currently exist. And I'll just give you an example.
Go
Is
ahead.
I'm sure your mailbox got deluged as of Thanksgiving
Hmm.
at your end of, hey, there's a sale coming. You got to have this. You got to do that.
Hmm.
And rather than what's the holiday of Thanksgiving and some kind of Christmas or whatever you celebrate, what's that really intended for? So yeah, I'll toss it back to you and say, yeah, we get the outside pressure is enormous
Hmm.
and it's very distracting.
Right. Right. Well, and again, this is why so much of what we go through this year, you always want to ask that bigger question of who does this belong to, right? As we know, at least for those of us in the northern hemisphere, right? This is kind of a winter time when things are a little bit more, well, even despite global warming, our things are a little bit more colder, a little bit more internal, and like I said, it's really interesting to me to see how many people are willing to sort of overlay a whole bunch of things that they want to do for the new year on top of what, well, wait, how did everything go last year? What was emerging? What do I need to take some time to reflect on? But as you know, there's a term that we like to toss around here in our world called modernity, which is if you want to talk about the world the way that it currently is with all of the systems, we just kind of use that name as modernity to sort of encapsulate it. And modernity really wants you to finish the job, get it done, move on. We have some more things that we want to sell to you. You know, we want to get on that track. Now, I've talked to a couple of people, and some people say, well, you know, this year I kind of like the idea of wiping things off on a clean slate and starting over. That's different. That's actually using your internal compass to decide what's best for you. But I was in a group situation, and we were talking about this topic. And in the Spanish tradition, there is this observance of the new year, right? And at the when the clock strikes 12, you have with each chime of the grape, you're asked to eat a grape, right? And this woman from Mexico was saying, you know, we were talking about the years and the pressure, and she says, you know, for ever since I was a child, I begin the brand new year, which is supposed to be this lovely tradition for good luck, cramming grapes into my mouth to get started. And she said, even as a kid, I couldn't finish them. And when somebody told her, hey, what if you began your year by taking the pressure off of you? And instead of borrowing the benefits that I have to do something, that there's this enormous pressure, what if I said, how we end this chapter? What do I need to do? So, um, you know, I don't know how you feel about it, Ray, but do you really feel like this pressure to start over helps people move forward?
Actually, I think it's what I've noticed over the years, the New Year ritual and the New Year practices are meant to keep you on the conveyor belt, essentially.
Hmm.
It's the treadmill is going, going, going. It doesn't actually allow for any kind of I like the Spanish transition is it's a break, so it makes you think, oh, what am I doing here? I'm having a bit of fun, so I'm
Hmm.
making a break. So essentially, what I find is the it doesn't allow for a little bit of introspection of saying, well, what really happened during the year, and what am I happy with? What do I want to do, as opposed to just keep doing what I was doing before. So it's kind of interesting. I like to sort of do what I call a retrospective, is sort of look at, okay, so what really happened in 2025
Right. Right.
from the perspective of what did I learn?
Hmm.
What did I like and what didn't I like? So I can connect what came before.
Hmm.
I'll add what you said is okay. So acknowledge that were things that uh, had an ending, but there's always a beginning somewhere along the way. So what is the connection between the two? And that's kind of
Hmm.
what I liked about your question, is what's the proper way to end and what's the proper way to begin, as opposed to what the outside is kind of directing us to. And it's literally directing us to do. Don't think, just keep going,
Right.
go
Right.
faster, do more, all that stuff.
Yeah, and that introspection leads us through a process to really look at what emerged, right? To go back and look on our year and say, well, um, all right, some things worked, some things didn't. Some relationships ended, some began, and it goes back to that whole idea of what's yours to keep. And more importantly, before I start setting a resolution, what do I need to close? What do I need to sort of, not build, not do that whole complete 180 and say, well, I'm going to do this. I'll apply it to something, simple that people talk about. Like I have an exercise plan, right? Or whatever that I'm going to just somehow magically overlay. But wait, what have I been doing last year, or what have I been doing lately that's preventing that um, transition to doing something new to stick? And again, in the background, we have all of this pressure. And so if we if we look at what actually emerged last year and honor it, then we can kind of decide how best to create that foundation to move forward, right? And I can even apply that to this particular container with the show, right? This was not the idea that I originally had as far as being able to create a broadcast on Sunday mornings. But I know that there's an awful lot of people who are in our age group, right, who are going through an awful lot of transitions right now. And this whole idea of, you know what, I have started over every year for the past 107 years, right? And that energy isn't necessarily working for me. But if I look at what's emerging, what do I want to be a part of? What do I want to bring out? What do I need to close? And so this container for this discussion, and I know that right now we're going to be building this, but we part of it is giving yourself permission to close down what's not working and then experiment with what's moving forward.
Oh, I love that. Is essentially we have to have some context to what's happening around us and in us. And what I like about it is recognizing there's beginnings, there's endings, but there's also what I like to add is there's a continuum. Our life is a continuum. Your life doesn't do a complete reset on January the 1st.
Right.
What we're looking at is, okay, so what do you want to be and where do you want to be in the world, not geographically, but figuratively? Where do I want to be? Where do I want to start? So part of that is understanding where I've been and what have I done. And I like
Right.
what you were saying is that you can, if you do some kind of introspective, just quick
Hmm.
review of things, you
Hmm.
go, you know, this ended badly. Why?
Right.
What would like to change? Or this is something I should look at in
Well,
changing.
right. And it's funny. I'm listening to you talk, and I'm listening to some of the things that we're sharing. And there's this tendency. Both you and I agree on the whole idea that inquiry, asking questions, is really important. But as you know, in modernity, asking questions is not important. Having answers is. And what you were just saying, just that's the whole idea of like, what are you going to do? It's it's 2026. What are you going to do? And that pressure to, you found out stuff isn't working in your life. What are you going to do differently? And it's that pressure to come up with an answer when you're not quite ready,
That's
and you
right.
don't know if how this is going to work. 15 minutes ago, I wasn't for sure exactly how this broadcast was going to work. And that's why I want to set with this container. So this will go on records for time in memoriam, that it is okay to ask questions. It's okay to not know. It's okay to go on a process of experimentation and beginning with that central inquiry, which is what we're doing. And just in case some people are popping in, that's what we're looking at. That central question we're going to do every week. We'll have something that people can inquire about, and we want really people to sort of join in that conversation with us. So if you're watching on YouTube, or if we'll be creating some containers for discussions after the show. Um, it, it you don't have to have the answers, but you can, if you allow yourself the time to not come up with, well, I've got to come up with an answer here. I've been told I need to do something. And even if we start to ask questions like, did you find your purpose in 2025? That isn't for you to come up with some magical answer. That's to put you in this process of saying, well, wait, what did work? Reflection is enough of a process. It's not mandatory that that reflection produce a result that you can magically share.
Yeah, I'm just going to add, I like the fact that your emphasis on experiment.
Mhm.
If you really think about, okay, everybody's been in high school chemistry where you do an experiment. An experiment is to figure something out.
Right.
It's you don't have the answer. You're about to discover the answer. So if we shift the paradigm or the metaphor to experiment, an experiment is about finding out something you're wondering about or that you don't know about it. And so the idea of experimentation is something you can use throughout the year, throughout your life,
Right.
because there's an expression that I love where somebody said to me years ago, everything's a test. So what if we shift that over to everything's an experiment?
Beautifully said. Beautifully said. Someone put that on the show notes and make that the. But again, that's the joy of the experiment. And again, I'm really excited for the weeks ahead with this show because the show that we wanted to do was a broadcast within that whole experiment. It's live. I have a dog in the background, which I'm sure we'll be making a. But part of it is it's from that inquiry, it's from that experimentation, right? And then what we get to do in these containers when we get together is explore. um, I'm gonna take a left turn here real quickly, and maybe because one of the reasons why I didn't want to create a podcast, I didn't want to be able to have that talk be the most of the focus of what we're doing. I People who know me have heard me say this a lot. People are drowning in content while simultaneously hungering for a connection. And part of what that is, that connection, especially for people in our particular age demographic, right, is still being able to contribute as part of the discussion, as part of the experiment. Almost as if, if someone gets to their third act, they're not allowed to ask questions anymore. They're not allowed to follow their curiosity. They should have had all this figured out. And I kind of want to flip the paradigm on it. And even though today is a small version of where we're going to be heading, the principles that you're talking about of viewing this as an experiment and then having the chance to talk with others about it is what we're here for. We are not, can I introduce this term? We are not putting ourselves, I should probably put this disclaimer, we are not sages on stages, right? We're here to guide the conversation as to what's emerging. And so that will always be the spirit of what we're doing. And so I'm just grateful that we kind of like thrown the gauntlet down and said for the next year we're going to be experimenting with bringing people in. We may actually do bring some people from the audience into the circle with us as we're going. But I do also want to be able to honor that whole idea of you know um, how well, I want to give a permission slip to people to ask questions and to reflect and to not always come up with answers because, and building on what you were saying, because those answers shift. And the one thing that people, if I can use the term elders, can relate to is how things change, right? And to change with awareness. What is it like I said, some things worked last year, some things didn't, some relationships ended, some began. So what is yours to keep? What do you want to move forward, right? And it's not that sort of product oriented, result oriented sort of thing of, well, you know you know it's not that you have to get things done. It's like, did you? And the did you question is where the inquiry begins, right?
Oh yeah, and I think the fact that if you look at inquiry, it's about connecting with others, as you mentioned,
Right.
but also discovering something you hadn't thought of.
Hmm.
Because there's always, with multiple perspectives, there will always be something that surprises you, that excites you, that shocks you, or that prompts further questions. And that's the magic.
Yeah, indeed. So, if you're listening to this recording, or if you're here with us live in the broadcast, the invitation right now is how we end this chapter. What and the way in which you reflect back to be able to say, all this happened, right? And even just beginning to be able to ask this question with an open mind about how last year went, what landed, what didn't, and allowing yourself to spend the next 22 days. I don't know why magically 22 came to me this morning, but allow yourselves this experiment to be able to reflect. And as you try something new, rather than responding to the pressure to think, well, this didn't work, so I'm going to have to do the 180-degree opposite of what it was. Like, I want to make new friends. I want to start a new job. I want to get all these other, what, instead of looking at it as a binary 180, right? Begin to ask yourselves what questions, because one of the things that I needed to do, and I don't know how this was for anyone else, but I had to close down a number of things which weren't working. And um, as you know, the older you get, sometimes you're afraid to close down
Yeah.
things, right? Because, well, what if I'm left with nothing, right? Well, I've had this friend for 50 years. What if I, it isn't evolving or growing? It doesn't mean I necessarily actually have to inform that person that I'm moving on, but how can I reflect and find out whether or not that's something I want to move forward? Well, I don't have a choice because I'm old. There's only certain things that I can do. And what if that basic belief system was part of what was holding you back? Because I think everyone gets the chance to reflect, right? Um, and as I know, I'm probably leaping into other episodes that we're going to talk about later on down the line, but I believe that people are, regardless of health, circumstance, financial well-being, people are infinitely resourceful, right? We meet certain challenges that come up, and that's where reflection comes in. Faced with this particular experience that I had, having been through what I went through last year in 2025, what do I choose to involve in 2026? And sometimes just simply knowing that didn't work is where reflection begins. And unfortunately, modernity teaches us that that you want to just instantly create some kind of new image, right? And it just doesn't stick. It just can't stick on a foundation that isn't prepared, ready to receive it. Fair
Yeah.
enough.
Yeah, I would add one element to what you said, which was great, because I was just processing what you were saying. Is so true. Is that the other element that is pushed on us is the idea that everyone is at the same place in their life. Our
Hmm.
timing, the messages, the pressures that are put on us, as if everyone was ready or at the same location. When you really
Hmm.
think of in your life, and you had mentioned this, and somebody had mentioned this to me earlier this year in 2025, was that perhaps they're not ready. And you have to take that in consideration. Maybe you're not ready
Hmm.
to make a decision, to make a change. But the minute you look at, okay, what would be the circumstance? So the timing factor is important, because if somebody says, well, you've got to go do this with this goal, well, is this the right time to even be thinking of it,
Hmm.
of that particular activity? So timing does play a role in the process.
It does. And, I wish I had my etymology expert with me at the moment that would be able to say, because I believe that the word goal actually emerged from some kind of Middle Ages term for jail. you
Yes,
know?
Joel or something. Yeah.
Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's amazing how those goals can trap us, right? Because largely they're constructs of the mind. That's not, again, those of you who are tuning in, I'm not trying to say, because, as Ray and I talk about this often, is the challenge with language and metaphor is that, the word goal may mean one thing to you and may mean something else to me. And it's not for me to correct it. If you think goal means the best thing in the world for you, that's wonderful. But if you've had challenges with, again, reflecting on why goals are difficult for you, maybe you're not ready. Maybe there's things that are. I use targets because for me, it's easier for me to aim at something, right? So that I get my intention and my focus. So I often talk about what my targets are for 2026, right? Where am I going? And again, that's helpful for me. And if we spend an awful lot of time, um, quote, arguing over what goal really means, it's the only reason why I wanted to throw that in there is it again adds a different perspective to hopefully if goal doesn't work for you, target may work for you, intention may work for you. It's okay because you're beginning to self-verify what works for you through that process of reflection.
Yeah, I'm just going to add something to what you
Yeah.
said. What you're actually doing, and you do this on every call I'm on with you, is what we do almost intuitively
Hmm.
is you explain what you mean by using a term like goal.
Hmm.
And if we do that with others in our conversations, there was a visual facilitation group that I was participating in, and one of the first things the fellow that was doing the demonstration said, "Pay attention to the language that you're using when you're trying to attribute meaning to a visual or to a visual process." So
Right.
he said, language, the metaphors we use, the words, etc. What we're doing right now is we're co-exploring or co-creating meaning. So it's okay to have a different definition. But what's important in a conversation is to say, well, what did Jamie mean by that?
Right.
The minute I understand that, we've elevated the definition. So when Jamie uses the word goal or target, I know what he's talking about.
And you know how, again, what my preferences are around that particular word or what, so yes, all of that is very important. And again, as we look back to our central question of this particular week, is how we end that chapter. And so again, that just brings your conscious, there is no right answer to that question, and you can leave things undone. I mean, I'm sure if we went through everybody who's listening to this this broadcast's house, there will be areas that are still undone. And it's being comfortable with the fact that some things are still in process. But again, inquiry leads you into something where you can check it out, right? And again, because modernity forces us into sort of sometimes, uh, adopt things that we're not ready for, we'll just begin. Just do it. Just do it, And sometimes just do it is the right energy when you're ready, just like you were saying. And uh, what you're saying, as always in our conversations, Ray, it brings up so many of the other topics which I think we're going to be discussing. So, one of the things that I think is really important for people to be aware of is we're doing the same thing with this particular broadcast. Um, if we at the end of the year, contrast this episode, this broadcast that we're doing right now, to where we're going to be, um, there'll be a lot more things added into it, but it's okay that we don't know exactly what those things are right now. And when you say that to people, it's like, well, wait, aren't you ready? Shouldn't you know this? Shouldn't you have had all the little different angles? And I'm happy to admit I didn't tell very many people that we were starting today because when you're starting something, for me, again, I'm going to own this. Um, I want things to start small. I like the humble beginnings because when you're growing something, and when you're at this level with it, right, just trying to test some things out. For me, my permission slip says, start slow and grow. But those of us of a certain age have certainly worked with people, you got to have a big opening. You got to make sure right from the get-go, that first impression, it's so important. Whatever is that first impression, and there is all that pressure speaking before you, right? So what speaks then is the pressure to perform rather than the invitation to an inquiry to see what's there for yourself and the people that you're working with.
And I think there's going to be a shift with those who join your conversations
Mm-hmm.
as well as those that observe. So I always like that. That's where the continuum comes back in. Looking across 3 or 4 calls in the future, somebody
Mm-hmm.
will say, "Hey, I rather be in participation, or I rather be, I'm ready to listen, but not ready to participate yet, or to be,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm
Mm-hmm.
also ready to be in a different space." And this is where, by the end of the show or the broadcast, is I think it'd be a good idea to talk about what other containers or what other spaces are available at some point for the future.
For this show,
Yeah, just
you doing this
basically,
show?
not that they're open and ready to go,
I can't
but I
rate it. We can't do that till March. We can't do that now.
but what I find interesting, because I'm doing a session with a group next week, and they're basically experimenting with new technologies. And I asked them, I said, in your life, go look at what you hope to do or what you would like to do differently. Then what I'm going to share with them with my experiments with technology will be, hey, I found a space or a process that allows you to do what you're talking about. And then they can, and you've always done this in our discussions, is if we get conceptual, you always bring it down to the practice or the practical.
Right.
And I
Right.
think that's kind of fun. So, in essence, I think give a bit of a sense. You don't have to do it right now,
I can
but
do it. I can
at
turn on the
some
dial.
point, what I found exciting is when you were telling me what you were doing, is that you were going to invite people in different spaces, and I said, "That's so cool."
Right. Well, again, maybe just a 30-second overview of originally how this idea evolved as an experiment. Initially when I was discussing it, I wanted to do something for people like myself, for older people. And, I proudly introduce myself as 107 years old. It just kind of takes it off the table. But I wanted to do something that for people who were older, that was a given, who were wiser, and we're stronger. So my original vision for this particular broadcast became, well, we'll do a show called Older, Wiser, Stronger. But the one thing that was challenging about that is that a lot of people who are our age don't like the word older. It doesn't set up a continuum. And the fun thing was I decided to sort of experiment with it, and it is interesting to see how um, a lot of you know there is not such a thing that longevity is a movement, right? But it's not, and all of the heaviness that gets put on senior citizen, right? Um, and um, the commonality, however, that I found about the people that I wanted to talk with and to have conversations with are those people who are still curious, those people who are still asking questions. And I think that you can ask questions about your life, whether or not you've just lost your spouse, whether or not you've had a terminal diagnosis. There is that innate thing within us that is still curious. That is still curious. Well, how do I meet this challenge of the present moment? What is mine to do? And because the one thing that is true about people our age is we have the opportunity to look back on our lives and begin to sort of look about those common threads and the things that we want to bring forward. I even thought for a while that we would magically call this thing rewrite your past, and then I thought rewrite your future, but then I realized I have difficulty saying the word rewrite. But anyway, so part of this whole process of that is this container for our broadcast is about that inquiry. So one of the things that Ray has been helping me with, and some others have been helping me with, is, well, what are the ways in which other people could get involved in this? We know that we want to broadcast. I'm so grateful to Jessica Dugas for allowing us to kind of come in on Sunday mornings in the Breakthrough Show Network to she has this wonderful thing already set up that we could just kind of like sneak in and just be a part of her network. But we also participate in other platforms where there's a way. We realize that this conversation is rather limited because you're listening to us as the broadcast container, and we want to be able to invite some people in. So we have the vision that we'll also have an after discussion on a platform that we use, which allows us all to be in the same room to be heard. We also want to tap into other places like a Substack where we can have some written transcripts where people can be able to kind of look and go. But all of those extra containers are there to scale out, not scale up. I want to make sure that whatever we do as far as inviting you in this process and to inspire you with the questions that we ask is for you to say, well, hey, what is it that I would like to do? Right. We'll maintain this container here as sort of like a weekly resource for people to check in. But we want the people who are listening in this show to experiment in their own lives and share with us. And we want to be supportive of the initiatives and the things that you're doing, because we're here to sort of kind of like round the sphere of what's possible, right? We're offering in this particular atmosphere some ideas about guidance leadership rather than, which is not about scaling up. Like we're not going to create some kind of empire here on Rise and Shine Sundays, right? The thing that would make me happiest on December, whenever we're doing a show in December, is to look at the people who are listening and involved and engaged in the show and see what they're doing. And so the guests that we bring on to this show as we move throughout the year are people who are actively experimenting, people who are actively exploring. They may be really wise leaders, or they could be people just like us who are starting out on a first episode just to see how this thing rolls. Because it's finding people who are going with you on this journey, and seeing what's emerging. The phrase I've used, and this kind of came to me in last year when I was looking at it, because there's a lot of stuff that's broken right now. There's a lot of discord, not the platform, but an actual lot of discord and disharmony, dissonance, strife, anguish. We are walking between two worlds, right? But when you place yourself on that path of inquiry, right, there is a road that rides up to meet you. And that road is often populated with other people who are walking with you, right? And it's a matter of looking around you to see what's available, you know and it's we'll be dancing a lot and talking about with some of these metaphors as we move forward. Was that a good overview, or did I just go on too
Oh, that
long in
that
my
that
own
that
little
that was
my own
great.
little personal daydream?
The only thing I would throw in there, and we touched on it briefly, and when you changed the name to Rise and Shine Sundays, I went, ah, now it can appeal across the generations.
Mm-hmm.
Because what I'd love to see is, I'm always amazed when you talk to younger people.
Mm-hmm.
And younger people can be 15 to 45 or older, whatever
Or
age you are,
59.
or 59, is their insights
Mm-hmm.
of how they see the world and how they respond to what somebody like us, the older folks, would say, is a huge opportunity to go, wow, I never thought of it that way.
Mm-hmm.
And wow, somebody in their 30s thinking of this, because the world has changed so much. Like you say, there's so many elements that are in deterioration or are just plain broken.
Right.
Younger people have to navigate all this stuff a lot faster. Um, Not that we don't, but in essence, it's a huge opportunity to connect the generations as well
Mm-hmm.
with a
Mm-hmm.
theme like Rise and Shine, like become aware, uh, show us who you really are as a person in a safe space where you can share your thoughts and
Right.
ideas and explore.
Right. Without judgment, without somebody saying, well, you did it wrong. That's the other thing that, as we talk about how we end a chapter shapes what comes next. You get to choose how that chapter ends, right? You didn't do it wrong. When you look back on your whole experience, you may say, well, that didn't work. That didn't work. But your experience is never wrong. Your experience is your experience. You may say, well, that was the wrong answer at the time, but you yourself are not wrong. There may be choices that you would make that you would do differently. And I think that again, keeping that atmosphere of inquiry open is really, really important, because it becomes a sort of judgment-free zone, right? And I want to pick up on something you said about intergenerational, because one of the things that I had to take a risk at this year was opening myself up to mentorship in a way that was meaningful. And one of the people who was and continues to be a really strong mentor for me is a 30-year-old who lives halfway across the world. And when you open yourself, because there's this, oh man, that's not working. Modernity will tell us, well, wait, these young kids, they don't see the world the way that we do, and this person's from a different country, and what is this, and all of that conditioning that we have that tells us that we're going to smack the hand of the universe when somebody who has that same tone and coherence of the things that we're looking for, and it happens to come in, well, and I think most of us of a certain age encounters this in healthcare, or when you're with a doctor who may be as old as your grandchild. Well, what does she know? She's my daughter. You're younger than my daughter. We find ourselves with all of those litanies that modernity has told us are the instead of looking to see what's emerging. Well, this person provides me with an awful lot of foundational help and support, right? And again, you also want to make sure that is mutual, right? Because you, I realize I'm going on a left turn here again, but oftentimes people our age can put out elder vibes, which means I know all the answers. I feel threatened by new information, um, and we engage in something that I call worry, clutch, and grab. We're worried about everything. We're gonna, I'm holding on to everything that's mine. Not going to take anything away. And if you see something, you better grab it before you get it. And if you can let go of it at this particular age and see what's emerging, give yourself those permission slips. Um, excuse me. Um, and that can help, because it was like, oh, okay, I really need to let go of that. When I looked at my 2025, there's a lot I've let go of. And a lot that I'm leaning into, not to use that phrase because I know that gets bandied about a lot, but is for me, that's the road that is rising before you, the what is emerging. And I just wanted you to know that you can contact us. There's a way, and if you look in the show notes on YouTube for this, if you have some thoughts about questions that you'd like to have explored, contact us and let us know. And I know that there's going to be a way which I'm not for sure if I set it up correctly today, for us to be able to see the comments from people on YouTube so that we could actually see it live so they could ask us questions. We'll improve on that. And I'm going to leave you with one little final chat before we kind of go into something. I remember when the Kevin Costner, who made Dances with Wolves, right? And it when he started to do that, went into directing, and there were some things that worked and some things that didn't work. And I heard him said, you know what? When I do something, I'm giving myself the permission to do it better, to continue to improve. And we have this tendency because, again, just as I said at the beginning of the hour, there is so much pressure on us to make that first impression, get it right, don't start. There were people who tell me, well, you can't start this until you're absolutely, well, no, for me, this is an experiment. And I want to invite people who understand that inquiry. So we have the kind of right to kind of grow this as we go, to grow as we go, as they say.
Oh, can I add the a Kevin Costner comment?
Sure.
is after Dances with Wolves, he was being interviewed,
Mm-hmm.
and at the end of the movie, his main character on a horse rides over this hill,
Mm-hmm.
rides up the hill and gone. And so the reporter or the interviewer says, "Well, what happens?" The need for certainty, right?
Right,
What
right, right.
happens? And Kevin Costner pauses and he goes, "I haven't thought that far." It's like beautiful answer, like truthful answer.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I haven't thought that far.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and again, it's finding the delight in in the inquiry, and so that's why I think it's really important, at least for the month of January. Our next couple of broadcasts are going to be focused on some of these core issues about seeing what's emerging and how they can inform you as you move into your year. And again, not definitively, unless you're there. There are some things that you really want to be able to put into place, but you give yourself the freedom, especially at our age, to explore and experiment and hear from people who are exploring and experimenting. We've reached this time when we can sit with a large language model, an AI, if you will, and have conversations about the facts, right? But when we're really doing something that embodies inquiry, experimentation, and exploration, that's part of what makes us human, right? And the ability to sort of fine tune, change, um, temper it, adapt it, be facile with it, is the joy of where we're at. And especially at a time when systems across the board are broken and dysfunctional, because we cannot, um, in this particular time when there are so many people who are facing really significant challenges in their lives, discount that experience and just say, well, if you only thought more positively, perhaps things would be different, because that is a modernity trap as well. Because what you're doing in that moment is turning a blind eye to your own experience or what's really happening, and believing that there's some kind of magic that's going to come in. Now, I know a lot of my new thought and new age people are going to say, you're cutting that out. And no, what I'm trying to say is that it's having the full awareness of what's happening and choosing to move forward with that awareness. And so, to me, that guiding light, if you will, that's why Rise and Shine Sundays became sort of the better name for it, is that whole idea of seeing what's emerging, what is there, what is possible, that is in the newness, not in the brokenness that we just came through. Agreed?
Oh, definitely. Just one of the things too that I've picked up over the years is
Right.
giving enough pause
Mm-hmm.
for people to process the ideas. Because what I always find amazing in discussions with you is I'll have an immediate, okay, I get that. And then 2 hours after the call, I'll go, oh, I would have loved to brought this up. So there's always the time for thinking. Your brain automatically kind of processes in the background,
Right.
and it's all about sort of what triggered your curiosity, as you said
Right.
before.
Right. Well, I want to that's a perfect time to kind of make the segue invitation to sort of the idea that we will be here live next week, same time, same place, which is 10 a.m. Eastern, or excuse me, 10 a.m. Central Time, 11 a.m. Eastern Time, and you can probably do the math to figure out whatever time zone. If you want to be part of the live conversation, that's great. We will be able to turn on some of the levers that will allow you to sort of do that. And we also want to be able, we'll have not only a guest explorer, if you will, who will be kind of guiding us through some of the discussion. If you want to come in and be with us in the studio and be part of that discussion, there are opportunities for you to do that. Some people like to talk on camera, some people don't. Some people like to send things in the chat, some people don't. And some people, like Ray was saying, something will emerge. If you've listened to this or maybe coming to you, in the description on YouTube, you'll see a link for you to be able to reach me in my online office. And I'm always happy to sort of have a conversation about those things. But and I'm going to have to remember, to turn off some of my devices that are reminding me of what's coming next. But hey, it's an experiment. And I'm delighted to have those of you who were watching and those of you that will continue to watch as the weeks come along uh, to be with us as we go through this exploration. And again, your experiments and your explorations are what's the integral part of this, because it's not just some kind of, this is a talk show, this is an involvement, and this is an experiment to see how we can make this particular container be as um, I'm going to use the $3 word, as efficacious as possible for people who are going through their own journey, so that you have a chance to be part of the conversation, because it's not us talking. That's not where the joy comes. The magic comes when that light goes on for you, and that you begin to sort of rise up into what is happening for you in your world.
Can I just add a tech disclaimer?
Yeah.
Is somebody once told me, said, when you're experimenting,
Mm-hmm.
especially with this new technology, and you're adding things to it as you go, you have to be in a more fluid mindset.
Mm-hmm.
So his comment was, embrace the glitch. So be at peace when things go wrong. You're not after perfection. You're after
Right.
basically people going through chaos and coming out, having learned something, saying, "Hey, I know now not to touch that button."
I love that. Ray, any other final thoughts as we begin to wind down?
Actually, you've covered so many different things. Like you said, what I love about what's come out of the conversation is the various elements that hopefully have sparked some curiosity or some areas to explore. There's so many different elements, and we have yet to hear back from people. So, what I think I like about it is that um, one of the elements, that is that whatever people bring up is something that can be part of the discussions
Correct.
over a period of time. So
Correct.
that's the nice thing. So don't expect brilliance coming from Jamie for here's the 14 episodes in the future. This will be, hey, what came out of the
Right.
conversation?
And
And
we will be building a way in which you can communicate, and we'll communicate back with you, just so there may be some advance notice about episode topics. And I'm sure there are probably, I can see that there are people that are watching us on YouTube, and I'm sure that some of them may have been putting some comments in the chat. But just what was that phrase again, Ray, about technology? We're embracing the glitch. The fact
embrace
that
the
I
glitch.
can't see it at the moment, we'll work that out, because every old man deserves the opportunity to refine the process, even as we continue to do this.
And as far as the experimentation goes, I'm going to suggest things to Jamie to try as an experiment to anything that adds to the conversation or the
Right.
exchanges. So there'll be visualizations, there'll be, as he's mentioned before, the use of artificial intelligence or augmented
Augmented
intelligence.
intelligence, which is,
Intelligence.
yeah, we'll introduce our glossary of terms as we go, right? Well,
But
that's
that's
great.
it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jamie. I really enjoyed
Yeah.
trying this out with you.
Well, and I hope you'll be back next week to see how we continue to evolve with this. And again, I want to extend an invitation to those of you who are watching, and if someone is sending us a message via YouTube, message received on some kind of ethereal, but we'll get back to you on it. But it has been a great pleasure to sort of begin this way with this particular experimentation. Again, we are here doing this live. We wanted to do it live. This wasn't we wanted to be completely, if you will, unscripted, guided only by the inquiry. I'm going to put this back up on the screen just temporarily. And just as a reminder, let that sit with that for a while, like Ray was saying. And if you have some conversations and thoughts about it, leave them in the comments. I'll be looking for it. Email me, send me smoke signals, whatever, whatever works. But I will look forward to having you back with us next week. And please stay tuned on the Breakthrough Show Network. And again, I'm so grateful for Jessica for allowing us to, like I said, just kind of slip into the platform. And I'm going to toss this in at the very end just because of that. Look for the people who can help you as you begin to have new ideas emerge. They may not be in your horizon right now. They may not be. But part of moving forward into what comes next is recognizing that what you need is around you. And sometimes that comes to you as you move forward, right? And especially, I get it. When you're 107 years old, you've been let down. There's been things that have happened to you. You can count, I mean, you can enumerate all sorts of opportunities where it didn't work. But as you're staying curious, you stay open to that possibility to see what kind of rises and shines within you. So I thank Jessica for allowing us to sort of perch here on the network as we begin to grow our experiment. And to all of you who are tuned in, thank you. We'll be back here next week. And stick around for Spirit Sessions, which starts in about 5 minutes.
Oh, Jamie, you have
Yeah,
to end with the path forward.
the way forward is around you. Yes, the way forward is around you. And until next week, is that my tagline now? Is that what I have to have? Just like,
Yes.
I'll be back. The way forward is around you. So thank you again. My name is Jamie Rich. I am your benevolent host. And with me today has been Ray Guyot. Until next time, folks, thank you for being here.